I'm Jen Lavallee at CAT Specialist. We're going to teach you how to set up to give IV fluids. There'll be a separate video on how to give them. When we send home what you need to give IV fluids, you'll get three things. You'll get the bag of fluids, a drip set, and then needles. Usually we'll actually give you a bag of needles because you're going to use a new one each time. The idea with each of these is we're going to connect them so they stay sterile and stay clean. All of them come in a wrapping and have covers over anything that's to be connected. So the first thing to do is unwrap. You can safely do that without compromising sterility because there will still be covers over what needs to be protected. This one is sort of like regular packaging where there's a little slit. You can tear down the side and then get the bag out. Okay, this will throw away. Same idea here. There's a little perforation. You can pull that open and now you'll have your drip set. Okay. Now, the next step when we start taking covers off is we need to be careful not to set something down because that could contaminate it. So before we start actually connecting everything, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this drip set. It has a clamp system on it to start or stop the flow of fluids. You'll see that this is narrower at this side, wider at this side. So when the wheel is on the wide side, then this tube can move and it's not pinched. But if you roll it towards that narrow side, then it pinches the tube so it can't move, but it's also pinched it down so fluid can't flow through it. The other way to stop fluid on these is these little clips. These are the same idea. If you push it towards the skinny side, it clamps and pinches that off. Typically, the roll wheel is easier to use because you can do it with one hand, just with a thumb. It's got this little catch here so you can do that. You'll want to roll this so it's pinched off so that the fluids don't flow when you're not ready for them to flow. So the next thing we'll do is start connecting everything. To do that, it's easiest to have the bag hung. You want it above the level the fluids will be given, so fluids flow by gravity. We have hangers here that we've rigged to our ceiling. At home, the easy way to do that is to use a metal hanger, something like you'd get from a dry cleaner. You can bend those so they might fit over a door frame and then have a loop to hang the fluids on. Now when we connect things, this is where we're going to start taking off those sterile caps and putting two pieces together. We'll start with a sterile cap on the fluids. It's this blue portion, and with that you just pull it and it'll come off. Now there's still a cover in there, which is why fluids aren't pouring out of the bag. That cover will pierce with the drip set. So this sterile cover on the drip set we take off. This is where you need to be careful not to touch this or set it down because we want to keep that part clean. That will fit into what we pulled off here, and when it pierces it, the fluids will start to flow. So we've pushed that in, and they would flow more except for this being clamped off, which we'll get to in just a second. So now we're going to attach the last piece of this, which is the needle. And again, we have two caps to remove, connect those, and not set anything down. So I find this easiest with these needles. They're sort of hot sealed here. If you twist, that should break the seal, and then you can get rid of that cap. Don't set this down, you've got to keep it clean. And then here, the same idea, you can twist the cap off, throw that away, and then connect these two sterile ends. This will push fit onto the end of the needle, but there's also a little collar here that goes up and twists, and that will lock the needle on so it's easier to get the cap off. You don't have to use that, but what can happen if you don't have that twist lock on is you go to take the cap off and you take the whole needle off. If you use this twist cap, then you can pull the cap off and leave the needle there, which is a better scenario to be in. So we've now connected the bag to the drip set to the needle. You're almost ready to give your cat fluids. What you need to do first is make sure the air is out of this drip set. to do that, we're just going to flush or run some of the fluid through the line. This is pretty easy to do. You just want to aim the end of this over a sink or a trash can, because fluid will leak out the end. But what we'll do is open this up to let fluid run, and then close it off once there's no more bubbles in the line. So we roll this open, pushing it back up to the top. Fluid's starting to roll through there. It's going out. You can see it dripping there. And as I look at this, there doesn't appear to be bubbles, so we'll roll it back down to turn it off. So that doesn't take too long, but that way your cat only gets fluid and not air. The last portion here is about this drip chamber. This is what you see in all the TV shows, all the doctor shows, is watching things drip in that chamber. There's a little line, a little score about halfway up, and that's about where you want the fluid level in this. If you squeeze this chamber, it will fill with whatever is at the bottom of the bag. So when you squeeze it, right now it fills with fluid because the bottom of the bag has fluid in it. And that's great. You want it about half full with fluid. Now, you can keep looking at that. If I open this and let fluids run, you can see fluid dripping into that chamber. And that's what you expect to see when the cat's receiving fluids, is seeing that dripping. Now, sometimes what will happen in this setup is this will get overfull. So I'll show you, if you squeeze it too much, it gets overfull, now you won't be able to see a drip. The way you fix that is turn the bag upside down. Now there's air at what was the bottom of the bag, and if you squeeze it now, it'll refill that chamber with air instead of fluid. So now when we flip it over, it's about half full again. And that's how you'd fix that if that happened. The setup seems fairly involved, but really, once you've done it a time or two, you'll be a pro at it. And I do think that fluids can make a huge difference for a lot of these cats. So we thank you for watching, and there is another video on how to actually give these fluids to your cat as well.